Hey, really quick before we start the show, did you know that we are on YouTube, Instagram, and Instagram TV? Please check us out on those platforms and subscribe. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blowout Growth Network. I'm Gio Auritas, your host. Thanks for joining us today. Today's guest graciously called in from vacation out of country. The audio quality may vary. We did our best to enhance it for easier listening, but because of how important this interview is for our audience, we decided to post it. So please enjoy and adjust as necessary. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Blowout Growth Network. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I'm super excited to introduce you to one of my longest friends that I've had, a remarkable dude. I mean, my favorite thing that I pick out of this, though, is that July 29th is known in Las Vegas as Marko Greisen Day. It's an honor that was bestowed upon him by the mayor of Las Vegas and by the Las Vegas City Council for his excellence and good standing within the community. He's been recognized for his accomplishments and for his dedication and commitment to the Las Vegas community and its leading industry by being named one of the 6 leading men of Las Vegas by Vegas Magazine. In addition to that, he is being named one of the Las Vegas Top 100 by Las Vegas Life Magazine. I mean, Marko, he's a master at connecting people, at sharing information, and bringing and providing value to every relationship. Nobody that I know does it better. He's a thinker, a creator. He's one of the most clever, witty, and master business Jedis that I know. I'm really excited to introduce you to Marko Greisen. Marko, what's up, man? Thank you for being here today and spending some time with us, bestowing some knowledge. How are you?
You know, Gio, it's a pleasure to join you today, and I'm glad that we're doing this. I'm glad we can share some knowledge on it.
It's really cool, man. Yeah, it's great that you're a part of this. Thank you. So, I ask every one of these, I like to start it off. I'd like people to kind of get an idea of where everybody is in life and in their career. So how old are you?
I am 47 and I'll be 48 this July.
July 29th. Marko Greisen Day.
July 29th, yes. Marko Greisen Day. I have to be honest with you, though, Gio. You know, I was lucky enough in 2015, my wife and I brought in our son, our second son, and he happened to show up on my birthday. So he's kind of he's stealing the Marko Greisen Day that's now his day, really.
No way. What's his name? What's his first name?
His name's Brixton. Yep, and he showed up on my birthday, and I said, okay, this is apparently he's going to carry the torch here.
Oh my God, I love that you share a birthday. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Marko, you and I have known each other a really long time. You're my longest friend since I moved. I moved to Las Vegas, and then the very same next day, I met you, and you and I just clicked, and we've been friends ever since, and just an amazing dude. You know, and I've seen you go through so many different phases of success, and it's what fascinates me the most about you. But before we dive into that, I want to know, what's your definition of success?
Ooh. You know, that's an ever-changing idea, I think, that lives within all of us, right? Depending on where we're at that moment, what's happening around us. To me, the definition of success is being around people that you love and they love you. And, you know, it's funny because I just thought about this now that I'm 47 years old. And for me, it's not worrying as much. I guess I'm a little bit of a worrywart. I'm constantly worrying about things, and when I don't have to necessarily worry if I have enough money to buy lunch or pay for that dinner, it's a good feeling to have. When you have a little bit of that cushion, that's a good feeling. But I think the real definition of success is being really kind of content and happy. You know, like, I'm really from inside, you know, I don't know if I'll ever say, hey, listen, I'm successful. I hear that often from people that tell me that, looking from the outside. But from the inside, the fact that I get to come home to my wife and my children, and I get to wake up with them and see them every day on top of being able to do the things that I love. You know, you've heard this before. There's never a day personally for me that I feel like I'm going to work. It is like my favorite thing to do. So it's not like a job, like a job. And I never feel like, oh my gosh, I have to get up today. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some days that are so stacked that I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what a day that's going to be. But in the sense of definition of success, I think it's, you know, waking up and being around the people that you love and being thankful each and every day for what you have. That's really success to me. It's not to me about how many cars you have or how big of a house you have. Granted, I think we all go through that phase in life that we look at those things, we look at those material things, and we think that those are certain milestones of success. But they're really not actually. I think actually they when you start to look at all types of material possessions, I think that it actually can hurt you from actually landing on a foundation of success because you have all these things to manage that maybe you didn't need, right? And you're just wanting other people to perceive you as successful, but success is really in your heart.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, and it's interesting. We've had a lot of guests so far, and everybody that I asked that question to has a very similar definition of it. And especially as much as it falls back on your family and how you recharge and where your motivations come from, being happy. And I definitely relate to every day not feeling like it's work. When you find your passion, I actually talk about that a lot on the Blowout Growth Network, Marco, of, when you find your passion, it's really not work then. When you find what you love.
People would ask me, over the years, my earlier years, I was always, encountering a lot of people. And people would say to me, you know, I just can't find what I love to do. I can't find my passion. And how do you know what you want to do? And you've always pursued. I wish I could be that way. I used to say to them, listen, okay, it's all about finding something that you have interest in to start off with. Then it's all about working really, really hard, being the best that you can be. And when you get recognized for those efforts, then you found what you love to do. Because once someone compliments you and tells you, hey, you're doing a great job, you want to do more of it. So it's all about finding something, doing it really well. You'll be recognized if you do it really well. And then before you know it, it won't feel like a job, right? It's all about, I think, going back to the definition of success is working hard. If you go to a job and you give half, you don't really put all your all into it, guess what? Every day you leave that job, you're going to hate that job. So it's all about finding that one thing that you love to do and just being the best that you can be at it.
Well, you said a couple things here I think are key. The first one, it's funny that you even say it, and folks, none of that was prompted. That Marco, you just said this, but on Blowout Growth Network, one of the things, especially when I do consulting work, I often bring a presentation with me that's kind of pertinent. And a lot of the stuff I've been doing lately is this presentation called Level Up. And one of the things that I ask the crowd and the audience in this is, can you take a compliment? And what you just said was so right on, because the ability, like, you're actually saying that the compliment itself is a motivation, that you found something. It's a proof that you found something that you're really good at, that you love to do. And now that's recognition of the fact that that's one of the ways, as somebody now looking back, it's easy for us both, right? And it's easy for you to say that it had that effect on you. But for somebody that maybe doesn't know that, that is a sign, right? Getting a compliment for something that you're doing, right, is a sign.
Right. Success is right there in front of you. You may not see it, you may not realize it, but it's there in front of you. It takes you to be able to become and meet with that opportunity that becomes the catalyst of success. Simple as that.
And you also mentioned, Marco, working hard, right? And so this is one of those terms that I encounter a lot, that people ask me about a lot, especially up and coming entrepreneurs or people that are just starting out in their careers, that are, trying to figure out, like, because we're looking back on it, we've gone through it, we've had the experience, we've seen it, what you've seen it probably 50 million times, right? Like, with all the different people every single night at the clubs and stuff. but not being able to identify, like, how do you identify it? These are the kinds of things I think. So working hard is one of those ambiguous ideas. And let me ask you then, what does working hard mean? What does it mean? Because you said you do have to work hard, but what does that mean?
Well, you know, time is super valuable, right? We all have the same amount of time every day, right? Each one of us. No matter what time you wake up or no matter what time you go to bed, our day is somewhat the same. So when I look at working hard, I look at trying to achieve 2 days of work in one day. That's what I kind of look at hard work. Now, I've had this conversation with many people. You know, sometimes people have told me my average day is about 15 hours. And so a lot of people sometimes have come up to me and said, I could do what you do in 3 hours.
Wow.
But I don't think that that is necessarily something great because
Right.
I'm the type of person that also believes in a quality of life. So I want to be able to take a break when I want to take a break, or maybe I want to stop and visit with my wife for a little bit. Um, and I spread that so I have that quality part of life where I feel like I'm just doing what I want to do, but I'm also putting in the time and those extra hours to make sure that I'm doing more than the average person does every day. Because the truth of it all is hard work, dedication, is essentially the key to that unlocking that success, and whatever that looks like behind the door. But to be able to move forward, it takes that type of effort. I tell people all the time, I mean, not everybody, but a majority of people see someone driving down the road and, a $200,000, Lamborghini or a Ferrari or a Bentley or Rolls Royce, whatever it may be. And don't kid yourself for a second. Those people work continuously. Those are their rewards to themselves. And in order to afford those rewards, you have to work. Even if you don't have the money and you barely are affording it, you're still affording a $2,500 car payment. That is not cheap. So, it takes that type of effort to me. I look at all types of professions, and a lot of times people say, oh, look at these doctors. They make great money and they don't do anything. But they're actually incredibly wrong because a lot of people don't realize what it actually takes to be a doctor. And then, yes, there's the schooling part, but what about the residency? I mean, if you talk to some doctors, they'll tell you they've spent 24 hours straight awake in the ER room. That's
Right.
the type of effort they need to make. But that's what they need to do to accomplish their job. And so time and energy put into it. If you're a person that says, it's time for my bedtime, well, you're already putting restrictions on you because you have to finish and get done what you need to get done in the day. And if you can go to bed early, then wonderful. But I look at it as, well, most people are working a day. I'm fitting in 2 days worth of work in a single day.
And that just begs the question, where do you get that motivation? How do you, because, and I think, the answer to that is you, when you find something passionate about, what, something that really lights you up, you want to do it. You don't, it's not really a battle of, well, I'm going to have to work 15 hours today. It's really, I get to work 15 hours a day, right?
It's honestly, if I could work longer, I probably work longer. um, my motivation between my work days is, um, I only have so much time, right? I only have so much time. When I walk in a Walmart, and not to discount anyone's life because I don't know what goes on in their life, but when I see a grandmother or grandfather, of age, I should say, at a Walmart, at a gas station, um, I wonder, did they use their time? I always wonder, did they use their time? Because a lot of people don't realize, and as they get older, when you're really young, you have the opportunity to fail. And I always tell people, fail as much as you can, right? When you're young, fail as much as you can. Those options of failing start to reduce as you get older, right? You can't afford as many failures as you get older. And when you get to your point where you're 60 years old, then your options of opportunity are slimmed down quite a bit, right? Especially with the advancements of technology and the things that are out there. It's just hard to keep up. So I think of those people and I think, God, so um, for me, I personally want to get as much as I can done right now while I can still walk and wake up and get out of bed energized.
Right.
And so that's why, yeah, that's why I'm doing that.
Man, I couldn't have hit it on the head more accurately than that. And anybody who doesn't have the life experience of the two old men that are talking to you right now, that those are no truer words ever spoken. Marco, I want to talk a little bit with you about how you started out. I'd love to learn a little bit more about the jobs and experiences that you had that helped to shape you for your blowout growth. I'd love to know, when you were younger, did you always know what you wanted to do? Like, for example, for your case, did you know that you always wanted to be an entrepreneur or a businessman? Like, tell me about how you grew up and, building your first company.
Well, I didn't even know what a businessman was when I was young, right? I just saw guys in, shirts and ties and they looked important. I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was or being an entrepreneur when I was really young. But what I was really into, so when I was young, I'm talking a young kid, I was a daydreamer, right? I was that kid that the teacher would say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I would be over there daydreaming, and it could be of whatever. Uh, and so when I was a young kid, I had big dreams. Um, I saw, I wanted to live a life where one day I woke up in in a bedroom, and and my bedroom was half full, windows, and I could just see right outside, and I would see the ocean. These are the thoughts that I had. I always wanted to be thought, oh God, I could build a company, or I looked at buildings and I thought, God, it would be cool to own one of those things. So I was that kid that was always dreaming, basically. And so I looked, and what I did at a young age was instead of saying really, oh, okay, how do I get there? I always looked at how I can improve myself. And thankfully, because of my father at a young age, he was very proactive at helping surround me around books and audio cassette tapes and me being around to where I could start to become a better person, right? Um, what I could do personally to grow myself and prepare myself for those things. And that's really what I did at my young age. I let the people who were the naysayers more or less be my motivation. I embraced it. I was never hurt by it. I never, ran to my room and was like, no one believes in me. Actually, I ran to my room and said, I broke out the pieces of paper and my calculator, and I said, I'm going to get there. I'm going to prove these people wrong. And instead of just trying to aim, aimlessly wherever, I aimed on myself. And I spent a lot of time reading and listening to audio cassette tapes starting at like 12 years old. I mean, I finished Tony Robbins' original Personal Power, his very first ever audio cassette tape back in the 80s, like around 86 actually. And I was inspired by what he would teach. Jim Rohn, same thing. I was inspired how it was all about you and what you can do. You are the person that holds yourself back, not anyone else. And how do you break through those things in life that we hold ourselves back from? And so over the years, I started to train myself that way. Everything from how I spoke, how I looked at things, everything from how to engage with other humans, how to all those things I studied. And when it came to time that I was finishing high school and I was looking at potentially college, my father had said to me, I said, I'm thinking about going to school and I'm not quite sure. And he said to me, he goes, son, there's nothing in college that is going to be able to give you the type of money you need in your life, because he knew what a big dreamer I was. And I said, okay. And he said, I said, well, what do I do, Dad? And he said, listen, the key to the success that you're shooting for is networking. And that is the key. And I said, oh, okay, well, I talk a lot, I like to talk to people. And I thought that was here and there. And I thought, okay, how do I get in front of a lot of people? And luckily, at 20 years old, just shy of 21, for transparency, but just shy of 21, I was lucky enough to go to work for the Morton family, the people who built Morton Steakhouse, Hard Rock Hotels. And I was lucky enough to be a part of the team opening the very first nightclub, really from the ground up. There were venues previous to that venue, but it was the first one built, ground broken, built from the ground up. It wasn't just some shopping center square space in the back with a portable bar kind of thing. It was the real deal, and that put me in front of people, and I
And
knew that I
this is
guess
the drink, right?
networking.
This is the drink,
This
right?
was the drink, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's where we met.
'95. That's where we met. That's right. And so, knowing that and the value of that, um, it wasn't about how many people I knew. It was about how many people's lives I can touch and they can touch mine, and I can learn from them. Because I felt in life, if you can learn from other people's mistakes, then that would save a lot of time in your life, right? By seeing what was happening in other people's lives and listening and learning. And that's what I did. Is I immersed myself around all different types of walks of life, and I was a sponge, and I absorbed and everything that was an interest to me. So if it was, oh, I want to get married once and I want to stay married for the rest of my life, whenever I came across people that said, oh, yeah, I've been married for 22 years, I've been married for 40 years, or I've been married for 50 years, it was always some of the first questions were, great, tell me some secrets, right? Tell me something. And then when you talk to enough of those people, you found there was commonality between what they were doing. And then, of course, I extract, the commonality out of all of them. And then, instead of me coming up with the idea, I let them be the idea, and then I follow the path. And lucky to say, I've been married once, and my wife and I just celebrated being together for 17 years together just earlier this year. So very happy with that.
Congrats. It's an amazing thing, and your story is something that I think a lot of people can relate to. Your passion, your desire to find something that you were curious about. You're constantly curious about it. You, as a young man, it sounds like your dad pointed you in the right direction, got your mind frame in a place where you now knew that you could have whatever you wanted to have. You just got to get out there and network, and you have to start touching people's lives and letting them touch your life. What an amazing takeaway from that. You know, one of the I think the biggest impacts that I can see so far that you've made is your company Galvantier. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about how did you build that company? How did you get there to build it, and how did you build it, and what happened to it?
Well, going back to the drink a little bit. So earlier in the years, when the drink first opened up, um, they came out from Chicago, and Las Vegas is a hospitality city. It's service is always going to be top notch here, and because of the East Coast style of nightlife venues, they brought in more or less a doorman, right? And that doorman had a doorman mentality, right? And he's the type of guy where if you came like within 2 feet from him, he was like, "Back up, you're in my comfort zone," right? Kind of, kind of an asshole, basically. Excuse my language, but he was with people, and so there was a really important person that came from MGM Grand, and he showed up in flip flops and in shorts, and this doorman happened to just belittle him, and it was insulting him on his outfit and everything else. Well, this guy happened to be one of MGM's biggest wells. Okay, this guy's worth a ton of money. He just showed up, and he, of course, told MGM how he was treated at our venue, and that's when we said, okay, we need to fix this, or at least the owners said that they need to fix this. And And we sat down, and that guy no longer was working for them, obviously, because of that situation. And they needed to fix that. And they asked me, and they said, "Hey, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I mean, if you want me to take this guy's spot and you want me to hand out VIP cards, because I don't, back in the day, it used to be a VIP card that you would have, right?"
Yeah.
And, growing up in Las Vegas, there were things called casino hosts. Why don't you just call me a VIP host instead of a doorman? Sounds a little bit better, and it's part of the gaming world here already. Except, instead of a casino host, to be a VIP host, and that's kind of where it started. And when I was charged with that position, it was great because it was all about, I wanted people to have a good time. I wasn't worried about how much money you handed me to get into the place. For me, it was all about you having a good time and spreading the word, and that's how we would build this business essentially. And over the years, later on, I was lucky enough to go over to the Palms and open majority all the nightlife venues there and the restaurants. And as the industry was growing, you can imagine how big it is today. Um, I started the industry started changing a little bit, and it was disappointing, really. I was starting to hear a lot of these new VIP hosts, right? A lot of people that aspire to kind of follow my path, my trail there. And but instead of being kind of that really great person and saying, "Hey, come in, I appreciate you supporting our business," it was, "How much money do you have? How much money can you put in my pocket? And I may let you in, and I may treat you like a good human being. It just all depends." And so technology was on the rise. Obviously 2000, the internet became really big, but people, other than Napster, and you got Mail and stuff like that. But around 2004, I was lucky enough to meet a guy who felt that I needed to get more involved in technology. And I didn't really understand technology other than like my remote control to my television, basically. And I did have an iPod, right? I had an iPod as well, and so I just kind of pondered, start learning, kind of absorbing with it, and I was lucky enough that once I was done, I told my wife I knew there was no way to continue doing my job that I did love, and I felt that I was good at it, but I knew it would be good for a marriage. And so I knew that, if I wanted to get married, settle down, and raise a family, the last thing I need to do is be coming home at 4 o'clock in the morning. Um, so I was, I felt the industry needed something new. I felt that in order to get into a nightlife venue, it was so fragmented. You needed to know this person, and that person needed to know that person. You needed to call that person. And so I thought, well, would it be great if you could make reservations online, very much like Open Table does for restaurants, but do it for nightlife venues so people could plan accordingly, and there could be some transparency there, and you could get rid of the middleman, essentially the VIPs. And so that's what I did. We built the technology, and we started building engines for the nightclubs, and then later sold the company after about 8 9 years in 2018.
And can you tell us what you sold it for?
No, I cannot.
Can you tell us it was a big sum?
I cannot. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't the sum that I was hoping it was, to be honest with you. Um, it wasn't the sum that I was hoping for. Um, it wasn't about that. I mean, yeah, I was hopeful in the very beginning, but it was the experience that really was the sum, the real big value. I mean, I started this company out of the casita in my backyard with one banquet table, just like basically the folding tables that you could buy at picnics and stuff like that. I put that in there with one chair and one computer, and had a vision and a dream to accomplish this. And I grew the company from $0 to $8 million a year and 56 employees. So
Wow,
uh,
fantastic.
that journey was worth so much more. I mean, honestly, that experience and every experience that I've had leading up to that prepared me for that. Um, that was one of the biggest things I've ever kind of been a part of, and it's just prepared me for what I'm doing today. So um, the value is not necessarily about a number. I know a lot of times people think of it that way, but really it's your experience is the true value.
Well, and you've gotten a ton of experience out of that. What were some of the challenges that you had in growing the business? Was it scalability? Did you have human resource issues? Was it
All the above. All of the above. You know, certainly one, people have to believe in your dream, right? Especially when you are one person with this big dream, right? So people have to believe in the dream, and then two, growing it, you have to be fragile, right? Because you can't overspend. You don't want to underspend. It's easy to actually underspend in a business, right? Because people are very conscious of their dollars, right? Their working capital and what they're doing. But it's a dangerous game too, right? Because if you try to spend too little, right? You want to hire someone, but you don't want to pay too much because you don't have as much to spend. Well, you actually may end up spending more, right? Because that person may take a week to accomplish what someone you would have paid a little bit more could do in 2 days, right? And in the startup world, when you go down that path, um, and it takes a week for someone to do one job, then it takes them a year to accomplish 52 things. Well, in business, timing is everything, right? So it's being at the right place at the right time, being prepared. They say opportunity, luck is when opportunity meets, preparation meets opportunity, right?
Mhm.
And so if you're dragging out a business too long, your risks go up substantially. So I think scaling the business and growing the human resources is a challenging thing for anyone's business, and especially for the person who has the vision, right? Because there's that level of control that you want to make sure everything is a certain way. But it's all about kind of hiring the right people, giving them some rope to do what they want to do,
Right.
and believing in them that they could do it with, as long as they are good listeners, right? As long as they're good listeners and you could coach them and they trust you, then normally you'll be okay. But if you get someone else that has a bunch of ideas that
Here's
maybe isn't as
something funny.
experienced, it's challenging.
No, totally. And it's something funny too, because in a lot of my consulting, especially when I consult with startups and anybody whose business is kind of on this growth vector that's just kind of going straight up. It's funny too that you say that, because what I realize is that it's not about trusting the people that you're hiring before it's trusting yourself. And this is a kind of an interesting hurdle, right? Because you have to trust that you're picking the right person, so that you can then let that person do the job that you need them to do. And you have to trust yourself that you've picked the right person. And I think that goes a long way. What would you say about that?
Hmm. Hmm. There's plenty of times I thought I'd pick the right person, right? So I'm like, I don't know. I think what it is, um, at least at where I'm at now, at the stage that I'm at when I look at people, right? And one of the companies that I have, we're hiring people now. So um, it's all about hiring someone that you feel like you can work with, right? Like here's a good thing. Like, can I work for this person? Would I be able to work for this person? Because if you can work for them, then that means you would respect them, right? And so that's good. The next thing is you've heard this before, time and time again, right? Hire people smarter than you. Hire people as smart, or if not smarter than you. Because when you can bring in the right person who is, um, you don't need to micromanage them. So someone with less experience, you really need to micromanage. When you micromanage people, it takes away from bigger objectives. and then you get caught up in the weeds. You start working in the business instead of working on the business, kind of thing. And then, but if you can hire someone that takes initiative, see, I'm a big believer that you don't have to be perfect. Just make a decision. It's okay to change our decision. What's not okay is not to make it, because again, that goes against time. You start wasting time. So when you get someone and you hire the right person, if you have to tell them a lot of what to do, you're in trouble. At least from a startup mentality, right? I guess when you're a corporation and you're willing, you can lose money, and you have an HR people that are hiring and firing people all at the same time. But when you're young and you're trying to start, build your dream, build a business, um, it's all about making sure you find that person that wants to be better than you, and normally it all works out when you have that person, because those people deliver ideas. They're constantly coming to you saying, "Hey, let's do this, let's fix this, let's do this." Because really, at the end of the day, I just had this discussion with some people. Growing a business is all about problems, right? It really is. When you start a business, and I've started a lot of them, when you start a business, it's all about, there's tons of problems. Now, some people can't even see the problem, and that's because they're not paying attention to the business enough, right? Sometimes they're just in love with the fact that they say, "Oh yeah, I own my own business." It means nothing. Sometimes,
How many businesses have you started, Marko? How many businesses have you started?
man, I started my first business when I was 19. Actually, well, in all fairness, I took my real estate exam when I was a sophomore in high school, and I got licensed when I was 18, and I started selling real estate literally when I turned 18.
And
As soon as I got my license melted,
weren't you the youngest one ever at your
at that
at that
time,
time, right?
at that time, they had never seen someone at the age of 16 years old take the PSI real estate exam. And then, of course, I took the test when I was 16. And then, of course, I couldn't get licensed by the state until I was 18. And then when I did get, when I was 18 years old, yes, I would show up. I went to work for Americana Group Realtors uh, in Green Valley here in Henderson. And I would show up to these 8 a.m. sales meetings. And basically, I'd feel like I'm surrounded by my aunts and uncles and grandparents. And they kind of looked at me like, what is this kid doing in our meeting? So it was a little challenging. Times have changed, right? Now there's 18-year-olds doing loans and selling houses, which is awesome. But yeah, back then a little bit different. So that kind of was my first kind of really into the real estate. And I have to be honest with you, it was all ego driven, right? And I tell people that, you know, I was in love with the idea of living the life. I just didn't have the grit yet to make it happen, right?
Yeah, but you
I
were
had the dream.
determined. You were determined to do it.
I was determined, and I did it. And I was determined, and I did do it. And then once I realized that, maybe no one's going to let me list their house other than a family member, and still probably be like biting at their teeth, their nails, because like, is this guy going to cause a problem? I then took some of my first money, and then that I made, and because I was able enough to do some, friends and family, and they did believe me. And so from there on, I opened an employee temp business, um, and learned my lesson there. I was 19 at that time, and instead of like properly putting the money in the bank, or managing the funds of what you're receiving, I was hanging out with my friends, and we were figuring out how we could spend the money. So kind of learned my lesson through that process, and
Well done there.
since then, I probably have, goodness, I've probably started at least a dozen and a half, different businesses in my life.
That's amazing. You know, I've realized through talking to people that normally behind every strong and successful person is a story that gave them kind of two choices, either sink or swim. Was there ever a pivotal moment for you, a moment where you had to make a decision, and it was a pivotal decision for you that really brought you closer or propelled you with some blowout growth to get closer to your success?
I would say that the first thing that comes to mind was when I was about 19 years old and I was having a good time. Um, and I was making money at 19 years old, so my friends were like, they didn't have to pay for much. Matter of fact, two of my friends that live with me, they didn't pay rent, right? So, um, and they're still two of my best friends today. But other people that I was around, I knew that I had to break away from people. I knew that there was a difference between the people that just wanted to indulge in the good time, and then there were people who wanted to actually create those good times. And I knew that I had to kind of separate myself uh, away from people that maybe didn't have as big of dreams as I did. And what I needed to do was be around the people who had of accomplished their dreams or were in the process of accomplishing their dreams, and be a sponge, observe, watch them, learn from them, and then carry those lessons into my own life. So that was a time where it was like sink or swim. I knew, like, right around 19, I had to make a choice. Either A, if I don't start slowly removing myself from certain circles of people, that I may just not achieve my dreams. And so that was one pivotal moment in my life. The next pivotal moment that I had in my life was just before we opened the Palms Hotel. In my first journey, at the drink, that was like, around 95 to about 1999 or so. I was young, and it was a great job to have. I had a great job
Yeah.
that came with a lot of influence in the city. And, that got to my head. I was young. I was in my early 20s. And then the second time around, when I realized that in life, sometimes, unfortunately, you're only as good as what you could do for others. I took that as motivation and said, okay, I'm going to acquire more skills, but this time it's not about me. And I think that was probably the next. I probably had two of them. So that was the next time, and I knew that it's not about me, because when you make it about you, you only have you. But when you make it about other people, then it's about them. And when you can help other people around you, then they make it about you. That wasn't too confusing, right?
Perfect.
So right around 2001, we opened the Palms, November of 2001. And at that moment, just before the opening, or no, to right at the same year as the opening, that I wanted to help change people's lives. I felt that, someone that is a plumber, granted, plumbers are happy and they make great money, but whatever their profession may be, and they have that skill in there. And so I thought to myself, well, what if those people wanted more in life? Instead of looking at that bigger house or that nicer car, or, that 2-week vacation, whatever it may be, how do I help them achieve that? And so during the same year in 2001, I invested into opening a mortgage, or basically a mortgage business, home mortgage business, but with a caveat. The caveat was that I would only invest into it if I could build a school and help those plumbers or whatever they are, a nurse, whoever they are, give them the ability and the education to do more in their life and provide more. And that was a pivotal moment in my life and it's carried me since then, since 2001, that almost everything I do today I am constantly wanting to invest in people around me that deserve it, that want it, and in turn, that then helps lift me as well. Because I think the biggest reward for me now in life is playing and having some kind of impact in someone else's life that could just be better for them in any which way. If I could share my experiences being with my wife, um, sharing my experience in business, anything that can help somebody, and that's the energy I put out there, and I believe that's the energy I get back.
I mean, I've seen it in you over and over, and it's interesting to hear because I've never really known that that was the one of the pivotal moments for you was at 19 where you really made that realization that it was not about you, and that's a really mature thing
Mm-hmm.
to have at that age. A lot of, I mean, I let's be honest. There's a lot of people that I do business with right now that are my age or older that still haven't figured that one point out, right?
Yeah, I think you know just to give a little bit more context to your listeners hearing this. So, in 1999, uh, 1998, I had developed a skincare product. I liked getting massages, but I hate oil on my skin. And so I was lucky enough to work with a laboratory out of California, and they were coming to the nightclub, so I had a good relationship there, and he invited me out to his factory in LA, and I went, and he said, "Hey, we can formulate something using gel instead of an oil, and make it kind of aromatherapy." And aromatherapy wasn't even really a thing back then, but and I was lucky enough to get Four Seasons as my first account. And so keep in mind, I was still in my mid 20s, very young. I think I was 26 years old or something. And now I think I'm going to be the next Johnny Versace, right? And so I start living that kind of life, right? So I had yet already kind of some influence from being in the position I was in the nightlife industry. And then on top of that, I'm like, I could say like, listen, I created my very first product and Four Seasons has them in their spas. And so I thought like, okay, um, and then I said, you know what, I'm bigger than this nightlife industry. I'm going to be a giant cosmetic company. I started developing makeup and all kinds of stuff, and some hard lessons learned there. I then um, I then did a deal with a company that was going to private label out some of the product. Long story short, 2000 showed up. Everybody was scared of anything that had to relate with .com, and I found myself broke and sleeping on my best friend's couch.
Wow.
And I think at that time, with I was wearing $500-600 suits. I was making all kinds of money, and now those same expensive suits were in a cardboard box in a storage. I actually put some stuff in storage. I ended up losing that storage because I couldn't even afford to pay the storage.
Wow.
And so I had a lot of soul searching at that time. And I realized that it can't be about me. You can't let your ego be about me, right? And it needs to be about what you could do for others. And that was that time. So that's what ended up happening. Just to give you a little more context, I just kind of found it, inside me, and I thought to myself, look at, I thought that I was on top of the moon here, and look at where I am now. I'm sleeping on a buddy's couch. I literally, I literally had not enough money that I would take some of those cardboard boxes to be able to get change that may be in the box, and I'd cut a whole corner out of the corner of the box, the cardboard box, and then shake it and hope the change would run out, because I would hope to get 160 cents essentially, which would allow me to buy one jumbo jack without cheese, by the way, and I would use that. That was my food for the day, because I went from making all that money to being in that position, and it taught me that one, God can change your life instantaneously if you don't appreciate it. And so when I got that second opportunity in life, which just didn't fall in my lap, I had to go get it. I had to wake up and say, hey, I can either dwell on where I am at today, or I can make a difference, because I know I've done it once, I can do it again. And that was the time that I just made a choice in life that I would put people before me.
Wow, how amazing, Marko. I never knew that story.
Mm-hmm.
What an amazing
Yeah.
story. And so you really know both sides of the coin, and being able to be that grounded is amazing. It's funny too, you tell that story. Another one of our guests had a very similar experience where he was actually living out of his car for a period of time, and turned it around and said the same thing. I know that I've done this already. I can do it again. And this time it's not about me. This time it's about
That's right.
you. It's about everybody else. It's about all
About others.
the lives I'm trying to change and help. It's about others.
And I live that way every day still. I live that way every day. I mean, my wife and I started a aesthetic beauty aesthetic business. And, we invested in this business because we thought, my goodness, there's a lot of men out there, couples, and, the man is working, and sometimes, you know, you have a stay at home mom. Sometimes you have a mom that's working but can only work part time because to try to make it work. And we found a business, and we said, can we help change people's lives by giving them the training and the tools that they need to succeed in this business? And we more or less decided to build a nest. In this nest, we would take care of them, we would help them, we would educate them over the period of time that they would be with us, and we would position them to be able to be successful. And I'm happy to report we've done a lot of that. And so it is an incredible feeling when you do for others before you do for yourself.
It's a great mission. And you really took it to the next level. And what's the name of that business for everybody?
That is microbladers. So there's two sides to it. There's microbladers, which a lot of people just know it as microbladers. Yes, it is basically microblading, and we happen to own that name, microbladers. And
but it's a lot more than just.
And it's a lot more than that. Yeah, it's a lot more. I mean, we just had actually this morning. We just had the chairman of the Southern Nevada Health District visit our location to go through it, because it is very extensive, and we do position everyone to succeed, and we love that. There's nothing more rewarding than that, when we can see people that show up and they have no job, or they're working somewhere that they don't want to work at, and 2 years later we see them pull up in a brand new car, or they tell us they just put a down payment on a brand new house. There's not. That's like the best feeling ever.
You're changing
that we got to play a part.
You play a part in that, right?
In that.
Well, a big part.
Yeah.
A big part. It's not small, maybe just in the sliver of time, but a big part in their life.
It does, but it takes them to do it. So that's why I say it's a small part, because we may be able to influence, we may be able to put that there for you, give you the path, but it takes you to seize the day, right? It takes you to go out there and be dedicated enough to go through it. But we do put those tools, and we make them, we make that barrier to entry a little bit lower by putting our effort in there. So everything from teaching them about taxes, or entity formations, or any of those things that sometimes are intimidating, we really work towards helping bring that knowledge. And we know that if we share that, and we're the salt out there helping other people, that we hope they too will pay it forward. So.
Well, and also I have to say, I checked your website out recently, and it's a really, really cool website. So anybody that is interested, yeah, it's very cool. I mean, it's worth checking out for sure. So anybody that might, need something to change their life like this and has an interest in this, Marko, I'll provide it in the information on the video. But if you'd like to say it for everybody too that's listening, what's your website?
It is microbladers.com. microbladers.com.
Yeah, it's a really cool site, and to know the mission behind it and what's driving it, it's really cool. So I have another question for you, and I know we only have a little bit of time left. I got a couple I want to try to squeeze in. So right now, what if you were just starting out in right now in this day and age, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you see for upcoming hustlers and entrepreneurs and people that are trying to better themselves and make themselves, grow and try to attain, like you said, creating their dreams and attaining their dreams? What are some of the biggest hurdles? I know there's a lot, and I know I've heard a lot, but if you could barrel it down to a couple, what do you think they are?
I'm a guy that doesn't believe in hurdles. It's a tough one, right? I'm the type of guy when you come in and you say, "Hey, I'm sick," I'm like, "Ah, it's in your head. Relax, get to work." So I don't, it's. I think that the hurdles generally, you know, is the one looking in the mirror, right? That's the biggest hurdle,
That's a good.
right? I mean, I could name off a million different things. Really, we are our own hurdles, right? And so I think that it comes down with one having a realistic dream. And what I mean by a realistic dream is the stepping stone. Um, the stepping stones of saying, okay, I'm going to start here, I'm going to accomplish this, then I'm going to move to the next thing. I think some of the big other hurdles that I see other people do is they rather live the dream, they rather live the perceived life of success than not doing it, right? So, meaning like the all dressed up, nowhere to go situation.
Yep.
I find often, right? So I put this investment into my nice Bruno Mali shoes, but I didn't spend last night reviewing the details around a meeting. I didn't research this. I think that those are some of the hurdles that I see people in. Is that and because the reason why I think that is a hurdle is because there's nothing really actionable, right? I mean, when you start to, they say fake it till you make it, and just so you know, everyone out there, I believe in that. I believe you have to have it in your head, right? So you may not have it, but you got to think that way to go into that war of achieving success. But I think a lot of it just comes down to the person, right? Is the hurdle. You have to have some discipline. Um, you have to have that. You have to have that discipline, and you have to be able to, um, and not complain, right?
It's a
Everything is
mindset.
just embrace, no complaining, and embrace. I mean, with a couple of my business partners that I have now, so a couple of them are new, and they'll spot out new to business more or less, or operating a business, and they'll notice a problem or something like that. Oh my gosh, we got this problem here. See, me personally, I love it because the faster that we can identify the problems, uh, the faster we can correct them.
Well, it's a mindset, right?
You, it's a mindset, yeah. So you have to look at things, and you can't wake up and go, "Oh, this has happened," and "Oh, this has happened." You got to be like, look at it and go, "Oh, thankfully this happened now, right?"
Right.
And now I can put most of the businesses that my wife and I own, um, you know, a problem arises and we extinguish it like within the hour,
Right.
right? Because things are now in place uh, to correct the problem right away,
Right.
right? Rather than kind of taking that time. So I think, yeah, the biggest hurdle I think are ourselves. Um,
And it sounds like too,
we
one of the things
decide
you said in there was like, you got to know your shit. You got to know your shit so that you can have these systems in place to be able to handle these things. And I think knowing, first of all, being passionate about what you're doing enough so that you're constantly creating this environment where you're learning more and more about your craft, whatever your industry is, so you can be so good at it that you can have that kind of blowout growth where nothing, like you said, there are no hurdles. I mean, I'm prepared for anything. I'm glad you said it, because I say it in a lot of different ways, but really when you're operating on all cylinders, there are no hurdles. You're prepared for pretty much anything that comes your way.
anything. And people say, sometimes people say, okay, what's your trick of success? It's all my failures and embracing them, not looking at myself. It's the choices that I made. I mean, you go back to Gallivant here. I was so cautious on spending money and being careful, and I was penny pinching everything. And one that was a mistake. I reflect back and I think to myself, all I did was prolong the situation. But now I know, and I think I think that success, I look at myself today at 47 years old, and where I live and how I live today is how I wanted to live when I was 21, right?
Right.
But it took that journey to get here. See, success is not overnight.
No,
Success is not in 10 years. Success is at the end when you look back at what you were able to accomplish,
it's the journey.
right? It's the journey, and it takes experience. It takes experience because, yeah, like, I consult from several different businesses, help people all the time, and I'll walk in their business and I'll look at one of the things and I'll say, okay, great. Where's your P&L? And they'll be like, yeah, okay, let me get that for you. And I can tell when they print it out, they've never used it because things aren't organized
Right.
properly. Yeah, I can look at the top and the bottom number, got that part. But if someone was trying to figure out is maybe, there was more expenses in one particular category than another, they don't have it. But they have a business. They have a business. I'm a business owner, but they don't do the really hard things. They're not hard.
No,
They take
but it comes
dedication.
down to the core competency. Know your craft, know the things that you need to know, be up on
Know it.
information, know what your competition is, and be able to innovate within your space. Those are the things. And I love the fact that you chose, ourselves as the hurdle, because that's what the Blowout Growth Network really is all about. It's about, sharpening your skills so much so that there are no hurdles. The only hurdle we have every day is us, like you said. How much time am I going to put in? How much effort am I going to put in today? How much am I going to devote to getting to this dream? And it's a total mindset. But here's the last question though that I do want to ask you. And hopefully some of our audience can take something really great away from this. You've given us so many great things today too. If you had to just pick one, and I know that you are a gentleman that has many superpowers, but if you were to pick just one thing for everybody to take away with that you could say really truly has been at the core of your success, what would you say that superpower would be?
Having empathy. Having empathy.
Empathy for
You know.
others.
For others, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I would say that's the number one thing.
I one of the things that really, when we were sitting down to lunch last month, 2 months ago, one of the things, in fact, it was the one thing that you had said that really was the part that sparked me, and that's like, I really would like to have Marko come on the show. It was when I asked you, if you could tell me one thing that you think has been a huge contributor to, all the success that you've had so far. You said to me, I'm constantly thankful. Do you remember saying that to me?
Yeah.
Can you give us just a couple of minutes and tell us why you choose to be so thankful and what it means to you to be constantly thankful?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give you an example. People complain about, like right now gas. I get it. I just filled up my tank yesterday, actually. And I want to say it was like $4.50 or it was like shy of $5. Let's put it that way, a gallon. And I was on empty. A lot of people get very caught up in noise, with noise in life, with everything. I noticed that with human beings. The gas is too high. The cost of certain things, or whatever the case may be. They look at it as there's people being bombed and killed right now. I'm going to go home to my family. Matter of fact, I'm going to go home to my family, and I live in a guard-gated community. I have great neighbors. Why should I be concerned about little things when really the most important things are all there? So every day, or I should say every evening towards the end of my day, I always express it kind of just inside me, like an internal prayer, I should say. And I just thank God first and foremost. And I just think in my head for everything, because today I got to come home. Someone else didn't. You know, it's, I'm here. I get to see my kids. I mean, the most important things that we sometimes put on the back burner, I put on the front burner. And that's why I'm grateful every day, is because they're not behind me, and nor am I taking them for granted. They're there, and I'm just lucky in my head. I just feel very blessed and lucky to have them, because I know what it's like not to have them. I know some people don't have them anymore. And so my focus is just being thankful. It's not anything I've read out of a book and it says, hey, be grateful every day and things can be positive in your life. Deep down, I just have an immense amount of gratitude that I'm here, that I get to see my kids today, that, you know, that I have a business, that
you live in a great country like America, where it's all possible.
I live in a great country in America. There's so many things to be grateful of.
Yeah.
You know, nothing is owed to me. Nothing is owed to any of us. So why wouldn't we be thankful? Because we could catch ourselves. Yeah, we could catch ourselves with a quick shift in life.
Sure.
And I don't like complaining. I hate complaining. I cannot stand complaining. So it's always kind of like there's so much not to complain about.
Yeah.
You know, even when I only had enough money to buy a jumbo jacket, jack in a box, when I was young, I was grateful that I was still here and that I still was around to do it again. And so that's how I operate every single day.
Amen to that. Marko, thank you so much for being a guest here today and for joining us and spending some time.
Thank you for having me.
And your experience. I'll see you soon. Let's do lunch.
Value to people out there. Have a good one. Talk soon.
Okay.